what to do if you're too anxious to schedule a new therapy session because of social anxiety. Yeah, I mean, this is actually honestly like really pretty important. Because I mean, in some ways, like the whole mission of me doing this is focused around this, which is the social anxiety itself is a barrier to treating the social anxiety. Me trying to do all this stuff is trying to get all this information and helpful stuff out there, because the vast majority of people with social anxiety never treat social anxiety. And those who do, on average, wait about 16 years. So 16 years of suffering before doing anything about it. So this idea of like wanting to treat it but being too anxious to go through the steps, yeah, that's a real problem. That this probably deserves a longer, more detailed video at some point. But with anything that feels too scary, like we have to break it down to smaller pieces and find ways to be encouraging and warm in the process. So having some social support during this, so family members or friends or anybody who knows what you're going through, having them involved helps bring the distress down. If someone happens to have that, then you really can like tell them what's going on and get their support through the process. Anytime something feels like too big of a step, this is one of the mantras, is find a way to break it down to smaller pieces. So what would be less threatening? I know that in like, say, Psychology Today, you don't have to call, you can send like an email message. And the vast majority of people, when I'm accepting people, will email rather than call. It's easier for me as well. That's an example of a way that might be easier. We can look for breaking things down into pieces. So taking a long, like basically getting to call someone, you can break it into smaller pieces. So reading things from the therapist, whatever, looking at pictures, watching videos, looking at the number, dialing the number, like putting the number in without actually calling after hours where you can leave a message instead of have a full phone call. Definitely throughout any of the communication, expressing that it's social anxiety and that these things are very difficult can be helpful. Looking at like what the fears are, like being aware of like anytime we're anxious, there's a feared outcome. So being aware of like what is the feared outcome with this, with trying to set up a session with a therapist. Like I don't know, because it can be different from person to person, but being aware of like what is your feared outcome, and then considering, is that exaggerated? Could it be okay? And then coming up with sort of like talking to yourself in a way that is more realistic. Probably there's not a great downside to reaching out to a therapist, because the people that go into it generally are very kind people that want to help. So that could be pretty helpful. You can do, in some ways, exposure, again, if you have friends, practicing having the conversation, calling up and, saying, hey, I have social anxiety, I want to treat this, in a way that's almost like doing like a practice run.